What if I told you that the most nutritionally complete foods on this continent aren't in any grocery store? And they never were. For thousands of years, indigenous nations across North America survived brutal winters, long hunts, and grueling migrations fueled by wild plants that modern nutritional science is only now beginning to understand. These aren't trendy supplements. These are the original superfoods, tested not in laboratories, but across millennia of real human survival. And the most extraordinary one, our number one, is a slow-growing organism so powerful that researchers are studying it in contexts most people would never expect. This is 10 native superfoods, ranked by how deeply ancestral wisdom and modern science agree. Every entry on this list is ranked by one thing: the overlap between how heavily indigenous peoples relied on it and how much modern science has validated that reliance. We start with foods you might already recognize. By the end, you'll see the world outside your window very differently. Number 10, prickly pear cactus, the desert's original pharmacy. Sonoran desert nations cultivated this plant for over 9,000 years. 9 millennia of continuous use as food, water source, and medicine, all from one cactus. The O'odham and Comanche ate the fruit during long hunts for hydration and split the thick mucilaginous pads open to dress wounds in the field. That slimy gel inside the pad? Studies in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology suggest nopal fiber may support healthy blood sugar responses after meals. In lab models, your high mucilage and pectin content appears to slow carbohydrate absorption, exactly the effect those desert nations were leveraging thousands of years before anyone had a word for glycemic index. You can grill young pads, juice the fruit, or find nopals in markets across the southwest. Harvest pads under 8 inches, remove all thorns, and if you're on blood sugar medication, talk to your practitioner first. Number 9. Wild amaranth, the weed that outperforms your protein powder. Here's something most people walk right past: that scraggly plant growing in disturbed soil along fences and empty lots. Many species of that are wild amaranth, and it was once considered as important as corn. Aztec and Pueblo peoples cultivated it as a principal grain. And Navajo and Apache nations harvested the greens and seeds across multiple seasons as trail food. Modern analysis revealed something remarkable. Amaranth grain has a complete amino acid profile, including lysine levels almost unheard of in the plant world, published in Plant Foods for Human Nutrition. Small population studies link regular amaranth consumption with favorable cholesterol markers. Toast the seeds and grind them into flour, or eat the young greens raw. Harvest before flowering for tender leaves. Avoid roadside plants, and moderate raw green intake if you're prone to kidney stones due to oxalate content. If you're the kind of person who believes the land still has something to teach us, and you want to keep learning what most people have forgotten, subscribe now. Every video on this channel is built to reconnect you with knowledge that was never supposed to disappear. Number 8. Choke cherry, the backbone of the original energy bar. If you've ever eaten a protein bar on a hike, you've used a descendant of this idea. Lakota, Blackfoot, and Cree nations pounded dried choke cherries with rendered fat and dried meat to create pemmican, a calorie-dense, shelf-stable survival ration that could last months. It fueled trade routes, war parties, and entire winters. The inner bark was brewed into tea for coughs across the plains. Modern analysis shows choke cherries are loaded with anthocyanins, compounds with significant antioxidant activity in cellular studies. The bark contains hydrocyanic glycosides that, in small traditional doses, may have acted as mild respiratory relaxants. Yet, in critical safety note, seeds, leaves, and unripe fruit contain cyanogenic compounds. Never eat seeds raw. Only use bark tea in small quantities. Harvest fruit only when fully ripe, dark purple-black. Let's put something in perspective. When we compare the protein content of amaranth grain to common staples, wheat, rice, oats, amaranth matches or exceeds them all, and it does it with a more complete amino acid profile. That's not a modern superfood brand making that claim. That's just what grows in the dirt if you know where to look. And later in this list we'll cover a single wild herb whose key compound is already the active ingredient in products sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. You just didn't know where it came from. Number 7. Mesquite pods, the tree that nations went to war over. This one reframes food as power. Kauia, Pima, and Tohono O'odham Peoples ground dried mesquite pods into a sweet, protein-rich flour for cakes and porridge. But here's what most people don't know. Mesquite groves were so valuable that tribal territorial boundaries were defined around them. Control the mesquite, control the food supply. That's geopolitics written in tree pods. Modern feeding studies show mesquite flour has a low glycemic index, releasing energy slowly compared to wheat flour. High soluble fiber and protein support sustained energy in metabolic models. Harvest pods when dry, they should snap cleanly. Flour should smell sweet, never musty. Honey mesquite is the most common species. If you have a legume allergy, exercise caution. Number 6. Stinging nettle, the plant that fights back then feeds you. If you're still thinking these are just obscure wild plants, this next one might change your mind, because scientists are actively running clinical trials on it right now. Stinging nettle was used across Pacific Northwest and Great Basin tribes as a spring tonic, fiber source, and nutrient-dense poherb. Cherokee and Iroquois applied nettle preparations for joint stiffness and used cooked greens as restorative food. Small clinical trials in phytotherapy research suggest nettle leaf may support comfortable seasonal respiratory function. The nutrient density, iron, calcium, magnesium, silica, rivals most cultivated greens per calorie. Harvest young spring tips with gloves before flowering. Cooking or drying neutralizes the sting. Avoid if on blood-thinning medications without guidance. In 1805, members of the Lewis and Clark expedition were literally starving, weakened, malnourished, struggling to find food in unfamiliar terrain. Meanwhile, the indigenous guides travelling with them knew exactly what was growing around them and how to use it. The explorers nearly died surrounded by abundance they couldn't recognize. That gap between knowledge and ignorance hasn't fully closed, but it's narrowing. Number 5. Wild rose hips, the tiny fruit that makes oranges look weak. Nearly every indigenous nation on the continent used rose hips. From Cree in the subarctic to Navajo in the desert, this was the universal winter vitamin source, dried, stored, and brewed into teas when fresh greens were impossible to find. Even modern measurements confirmed what those nations already knew. Rose hips contain dramatically more vitamin C per gram than citrus. Studies in the Scandinavian Journal of Rheumatology suggest anti-inflammatory properties linked to galactolipid compounds. Epidemiological data shows favourable markers for joint comfort in populations with regular consumption. Harvest after first frost for maximum sweetness. Remove inner seeds and hairs before consuming. Air drying preserves vitamin C far better than high heat processing. If this is landing for you, if you think more people need to hear about what's growing right outside their door, hit that like button. It's the single biggest thing you can do to make sure this video reaches someone who needs it. Number 4. Sunflower seeds. 5,000 years of deliberate cultivation. And we still underestimate them. This isn't just a snack at a baseball game. The sunflower is one of the first plants deliberately cultivated in North America. Archaeological evidence dates sunflower agriculture to 3000 BCE in the Mississippi Valley. 5,000 years of intentional human partnership with a single plant. Hopi, Havasupai, and Hidatsa nations developed distinct varieties for oil pressing, flour, and ceremonial pigment. Sunflower seeds are exceptionally high in vitamin E and selenium, both associated with cellular protection in peer-reviewed research. High phytosterol content may support healthy cholesterol metabolism in lab models. Raw and unsalted retain maximum nutrition. Black oil varieties are highest in fat. Striped varieties preferred for eating. Common allergen for some individuals, and calorie density is real. Number 3. Wild bergamot, the herb that's already in your medicine cabinet. Remember that promise from earlier? Here it is. Ojibwe and Winnebago nations used wild bergamot infusions for respiratory and digestive complaints. It was among the most widely traded medicinal plants in the entire Great Lakes region. Blackfoot peoples inhaled steam from boiled leaves for congestion and applied poultices to skin irritations. When modern chemists analysed Monarda species, they found high concentrations of thymol and carvacrol, compounds with demonstrated antimicrobial properties in laboratory settings. And here's the payoff. Thymol is the active ingredient in several modern antiseptic mouthwashes. That blue bottle in your bathroom. The key compound inside it was identified and used by indigenous herbalists centuries before it was synthesized for commercial products. Harvest at peak bloom when volatile oil content is highest. Air dry away from direct sunlight. The aroma should be strongly minty oregano, If it's weak, potency is low. Avoid during pregnancy. Use in moderate tea quantities. Number 2. Acorns, the continent's most overlooked calorie source. This entry doesn't just belong on a superfood list, it belongs in a history textbook. California tribes, Miwok, Pomo, Ohlone, Yurok, built entire seasonal economies around acorn harvest, with elaborate leaching systems and storage infrastructure that sustained dense populations for millennia. Eastern woodland nations used acorn oil for cooking and acorn porridge as a primary winter staple. Nutritionally, high in complex carbohydrates, healthy fats and minerals. Korean studies show favourable blood lipid markers in populations consuming acorn-based foods regularly. This wasn't foraging. This was a food system, an entire economy rivaling agriculture in sophistication. White oak acorns require less leaching. Cold water leaching over several days produces superior flavour, and this is non-negotiable. You must fully leach the tannins before eating. Unleashed acorns are bitter and potentially harmful to kidneys. No shortcuts. Before we get to number 1, I need you to understand something about what you're about to hear. Everything on this list so far has been a plant or a seed, something rooted in the ground that you can see, pick and prepare. Number 1 is different. It's not a plant. It's not fast-growing. And the direction modern research is taking, it goes far beyond anything else on this list. Number 1. Chaga, the slow gift from the birch tree. Cree, Ojibwe and Dean nations used chaga in 2 ways that seem unrelated until you understand how they lived. First, as a medicinal tea, simmered for hours through the darkest months of northern winters. Second, as one of the finest natural fire-starting materials on Earth. A dried chunk catches a spark and holds a glowing ember for hours, life or death in subarctic conditions. In circumpolar traditions from northern Canada to Siberia, chaga was considered a gift from the birch spirit. Modern analysis is beginning to explain why. Chaga contains extraordinarily high concentrations of antioxidant compounds, superoxide dismutus, melanin, bossy-betulinic acid derivatives, ranking among the highest of any natural substance tested. Preliminary cell model and small animal studies suggest immune-modulating properties. And here is where the story gets remarkable. Interest in chaga is growing in oncology, adjacent research contexts. Robust human trials remain limited, and no medical claims can be made. But the questions scientists are now asking about this organism would not surprise the Cree elder, who brewed it by firelight 500 years ago. Chaga must grow on living birch. Specimens on dead trees have diminished compounds. Outer crust should be hard, interior golden brown. Never take the entire growth. Wild harvested far surpasses cultivated mycelium products. If you're on blood thinning or blood sugar medications, consult your practitioner. Chaga contains oxalates that may stress kidneys with excessive long-term use. Every one of these 10 foods has been here longer than any grocery chain, longer than any supplement company, longer than any government nutrition guideline. The people who knew them best didn't need a laboratory to tell them what worked. They had something better. They had thousands of years of living proof. And now, science is circling back to confirm what the land always knew. The most powerful food system on this continent was never built. It was grown. Here's your 1 action. Walk outside this week and identify 1 wild plant from this list that grows in your area. Don't pick it. Don't eat it. Just find it. Learn its name. That single step, recognition, is where every forager who ever lived began. Drop a comment and tell me, which of these 10 grows where you live? I want to know what's in your region, because your backyard might be sitting on a pharmacy that's been there for 10,000 years.